In today's video, I'll talk about some of the methods you would want to employ in order to manage your anxiousness going into a job interview. And the first method is to learn how to breathe. So if you Google a little bit on this topic, you'll learn a couple of techniques, and these seem to be quite efficient managing anxiousness, preparing for an important event. The second technique you would want to consider employing here is to practice mindfulness. What I mean by this, I mean simply to motivate yourself, like you're awesome, you'll do a great job. This actually, works with your subconscious in order to make you feel better going into this pretty unknown experience, because it's an unpredictable experience after all, and this is one of the reasons why you fear these types of events. Now, what are some other pieces of advice here? If you need to go to the bathroom, you can, even multiple times. It's not a disqualifier, not a question mark for anyone. If you want to brush your teeth to feel more refreshed, yes, that's also something you can definitely do. Now, another quite important element, and this is probably for something not many candidates realize, but you need a couple of minutes, or some people need even more depending on your health, to warm up your voice. So I don't know, here you can use salt water, or you can hydrate yourself, or you can simply talk to yourself for a couple of minutes, to get your voice warmed up. And especially during these times when more and more interviewers are holding these interviews remotely, it still applies that if it's the first time during the day that you're talking for longer periods of time, that your voice will need a bit of warming up. So just keep this in mind, especially if you're a little bit if you're coughing or stuff like this. It will be not as easy as you might think to get into a conversation straight away. Now, what are some things you would want to avoid here exactly before the interview? You should avoid coffee or any other excitants as sugar. And the primary reason why I'm saying this is because these tricks, these hacks, only work for very short periods of time. And there are actually not that many people that use these things successfully. They are very well advertised, but when it comes to actually producing better results and as performance enhancement drugs, if you want, they don't really work. So avoid these things. Now, what can you do during the actual interview? And during the actual interview, you would want to keep in mind that you primarily allocate your brain, your attention into two parts. First is you brainstorm, for the actual answers and for actually you communicating stuff. And the second part, the second place where you allocate, brain cycles, is to basically read the room or understand the interviewer. So this being said, if you feel anxious during an interview, maybe switch off one of these two. Maybe you're listening to the interviewer and becoming more anxious, and maybe switch off the part that you're actually reading the interviewer. Just listen to what they're saying and then brainstorm, for what you would want to answer them, or vice versa. If you feel like it's not the best moment for you to brainstorm of something, just simply shut down that element and try to understand, really try to read and try to see how your interviewer's behavior, try to read them more on the behavior side. So by switching off one of these two circuits, you actually have more time to gain control over the situation, to be more mindful if you want. So this is one technique. Now, if you feel like you're overwhelmed by a question or you're getting stuck, press the pause button. You always have this option to press the pause button and simply take your time to think about something. You'll be surprised that there are many interviewers, and many great interviewers actually, that will appreciate you taking time and pressing that pause button to really think about it and really get again back on track into the relevant part of the conversation. On the same topic of pressing the pause button, breathe. So if you take a deep breath during the conversation, that's perfectly fine. So if you remember the first thing I said, a couple of moments before it. So if you learn how to breathing during a conversation, that's also very, very helpful. Another trick here is some people want to employ is to take notes during interviews. It can be calming, if you take a couple of notes during that interview, because you switch away from that reading the room. If you take a couple of notes, you take some time for yourself. So these, you see, these would be the elements here. And finally, just keep in mind, these interviews are not sprints, are actually more like marathons. So even if they take only half an hour, it's still a marathon. You have to perform consistently over longer periods of time. So imagine yourself performing consistently rather than performing very well in the first 5 minutes and then going down throughout your performance, right? So you'd rather keep it as a marathon. So these would be some of the techniques and strategies you would want to employ in order to manage your anxiousness during a job interview.